Good evening. I am not Alfred Hitchcock, but I am the next best thing. Your host, Tabitha, here to look at another piece of classic television. It's been a long time since I've posted a non-ASJ video, but you know what, little darlings? It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darlings, it feels like years since it's been here. So today, in the spooky month of April, I will be covering an episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. I had previously thought that this was a whole separate show from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, even though the premise is the exact same. Turns out no, it is the same show, just retooled to make the episodes an hour long instead of a half hour. I love learning new things. It is a mystery suspense anthology show, and we were certainly not lacking in anthology shows in the 50s and 60s. Some are still remembered fondly, like The Twilight Zone and The Outer Limits, and some have been all but forgotten. Does anyone want to talk about the Zane Grey Theater, for instance? I didn't think so. But this one had Hitch's name attached to it, which drew attention all on its own, and has most likely ensured that it has some staying power. Hitchcock Presents began life in 1955 and ran all the way up to 1962, at which point it changed to the Alfred Hitchcock Hour and ran under that name until 1965, when the series ended. Presents premiered on CBS, moved to NBC for a couple of seasons, and then went back to CBS as the retooled Hour. I'm sure you all know that Alfred Hitchcock was already an extremely accomplished director. He'd been working since the silent film era. He was super prolific, immensely good at what he did. I haven't seen every movie he's ever made, but I have seen a lot of them. Rebecca is in my top 10 movies of all time. I just think it's pretty close to perfect. Psycho, Rear Window, Rope, Strangers on a Train, and The Birds are all unassailable too. I know Vertigo is very loved and respected. It's just not for me. It's fine. You can all be wrong, and I'll just sit over here being right. Hitchcock only lent his directing talents to 18 episodes of the entire series, but he did host them all. A macabre and darkly funny monologue delivered by the man himself opened and closed every episode. Even with his decade-spanning television schedule, the man remained dedicated to his films too. You can't say he didn't work hard. Still, I always wondered why one of the most popular filmmakers would turn to television. I mean, his career was still going. This wasn't something he had to do, I don't think. But it turns out that actually having him on television, in the audience's home week after week, talking directly to them, with that mischievous twinkle in his eyes, that helped create and cement his persona. It didn't hinder him, it seemed to have helped him. He made some of his best films while Present/Hour was on the air. Ones I mentioned earlier, like Psycho and Vertigo, I guess. Plus North by Northwest and The Wrong Man. I want to talk about the theme song for a minute, because it's pretty iconic. Or maybe it's not, maybe it's just iconic to nerds like me. The song is called Funeral March of a Marionette, and Hitchcock heard it in the 1927 film Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. He liked it so much that he chose it for his show. And it was evidently quite popular in the late 20s. It was in a few more movies during that time. And I do understand why he chose it. There is something playful but slightly creepy about it. You know, dun 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 dun. Yeah, it sounded exactly like that. I did it perfectly. As for the show itself, I will be honest, I don't love it. A lot of episodes are variations on the same plot. That plot being, my spouse is having an affair, therefore I'm going to kill my spouse and or their lover, or I'm having an affair and therefore I'm going to kill my spouse. And I already watched Dateline, I don't need it here too. It gets repetitive. However, sometimes they switch it up and you get something really cool. Something like the episode I'm covering today. Season 1, Episode 17. Forecast, Low Clouds, and Coastal Fog. And when I say Season 1, I mean Season 1 of Hour, which is still technically Presents, and that would make it Season 8, Episode 17. Doesn't really matter, I guess. The episode aired January 18th, 1963 on CBS. On NBC, it ran against the one-season sitcom called Don't Call Me Charlie, Fun fact, the episode that aired that night was episode 17 out of 18. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't fun for those involved with that show, but I think it's interesting. It also ran against the Jack Paar program, a variety show that I'd never heard of, and upon closer research, apparently it was actually just The Tonight Show, and Paar was the second ever host of it. So it didn't start with Carson. Once again, I'm learning something new. On ABC, it ran against 77 Sunset Strip, a private detective show created by my old pal Roy Huggins. I've wanted to check that show out, but it's not that easy to get a hold of. This episode was written by Lee Irwin, a television writer whose career began with The Cisco Kid. He wrote for Circus Boy, Casey Jones, FBI, Peyton Place, and Flipper. He wrote 13 episodes of Laramie, 10 for Sea Hunt, and 3 of The Flying Nun. He also wrote an episode of Star Trek. Not a great one, but still. This was his only episode of Presents, which is too bad because I really dig this episode. This one was directed by Charles F. Haas. Haas started his career as an extra at Universal, but I guess acting wasn't for him and he became an assistant director and then up to director once television came along. Get this, he directed 5 episodes of the Mickey Mouse Club. He also worked on Perry Mason, Bonanza, Maverick, Route 66, Leave It to Beaver, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. He did direct some features like Summer Love and The Big Operator. Both of those kind of sound like porn. Anyway, as with Irwin, this is Haas's only episode of the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. The star of this episode is Inger Stevens as Karen Wilson. Stevens was a regular on a series called The Farmer's Daughter, but and I suspect I'm not alone in this, remember her most from her turn on The Twilight Zone. She was in 2 episodes, The Hitchhiker and The Lateness of the Hour. And they're both bangers, but The Hitchhiker is a stone-cold classic. She had a long television career from the mid-50s up until her death in 1970. She was on Bonanza, Kraft Theater, Route 66, and The Detectives. She did do quite a few films in the late 60s too, including Hang 'em High. In 1970, she got the female lead on what turned out to be a short-lived series, The Most Deadly Game, with George Maharis, but tragically she died by suicide before getting far into production. She was only 35. And everything I've seen her in, she has a hell of a presence. Next up, we have Christopher Dark playing Manuel Sanchez. Dark appeared in movies like Suddenly and World Without End. He did work mostly in television. He appeared on series like The Time Tunnel, Death Valley Days, The Green Hornet, and Adam 12. And a sad coincidence, Dark also died in the early 70s. He passed from a heart attack at age 51. Next up is Dan O'Hurley as Simon Carter. I thought I recognized that name, and it turns out his brother Michael O'Hurley became a television director, and that's where I heard the name. Anyway, Dan had a pretty successful career. I mean, he had a recurring role on Twin Peaks, that's pretty cool. He was also in movies like The Last Starfighter, Halloween 3, Waterloo, Failsafe, Robinson Crusoe, Home Before Dark, and Imitation of Life. In television, he worked on Battlestar Galactica, Rawhide, Route 66, Ironside, Charlie's Angels, LA Law, and Murder, She Wrote. The dude did everything, is what I'm saying. Next we have Simon Scott as Stan Wilson. I know him as Arnold Slocum from Trapper John. That character was mostly a nuisance, getting in everybody's way, and then there was a time he literally mowed Trapper down with his car. It was an accident, but still. Anyway, he did more than that, everything from Dragnet all the way up to Galactica 1980. He also had a recurring role on the Mod Squad. Then we have our trio of surfers, Rick, Ed, and Tom, played by Chris Robinson, Peter Brown, and Richard Jekyll. I think it's pronounced Jekyll. I like Peter Brown. He played the cute one on Laredo. He was also a regular on The Western Lawman, and he had a fairly long run on Days of Our Lives in the 70s. And he guest starred on all the cool 80s shows. Magnum, A-Team, Fall Guy, Riptide, Knight Rider, Simon and Simon, and of course, Manimal. According to IMDb, so, take with a grain of salt, he was discovered by Jack Warner himself. Interesting if true. Chris Robinson, in addition to being a working actor for several decades, has also tried his hand at writing and directing. He wrote, directed, and starred in the 1975 slasher The Intruder. Same deal with a movie called Catch the Black Sunshine, which sounds problematic. Granted, I haven't seen it, but the premise alone is a choice. And his final triple threat was called The Great Balloon Race. As of this recording, Robinson is still alive and still working. Good on him. Richard Jekyll was in some notable movies, like the original 3:10 to Yuma, The Dirty Dozen, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, Starman, and Grizzly, the best of the Jaws knockoffs. He was a regular on the one-season Western show Frontier Circus, and had a recurring role in the early seasons of Baywatch before they realized, ew, he's old. This show is about young hot people, actually. There is one more actor of note. It's a very small part, but this episode was Greg Morris's television debut. Morris was one of the stars of Mission Impossible and Vegas, so there's that. Okay, let's get into the episode. The IMDb synopsis reads, "A frightened young woman would like company in her husband's absence. But is anyone really trustworthy?" Spoiler alert, not really. We open our episode with the titular Hitchcock standing against a blank white backdrop in his trademark suit. It's where he usually is, but sometimes he switches it up when he's feeling spicy. Anyway, he's standing next to a surfboard. He makes his dry jokes, including a few at his own expense. He says about trying to surf, quote, "We're still looking for a wave large enough to support me." End quote. He introduces a sponsor, which of course Amazon Prime didn't feel the need to include. Which is very rude. I mean, what am I paying for? I want the authentic 1963 television viewing experience. Once Hitch goes back to his trailer to terrorize Tippi Hedren, or whichever blonde he was fixated on at the time, the show properly starts. We're taken inside a house on a dark and foggy beach. A woman, Karen Wilson, is alone and going about her evening, lighting a fire and playing some music. The radio announces that the forecast is low clouds and coastal fog. Take a shot for that title drop. She turns the radio back off when the telephone rings. It's her older husband, Stan. Is he rich or something? Oh, they do have beachfront property, so maybe. But then again, so did the Monkees, and they were meant to be perpetually broke. The point is, she's a solid 9, and he's like a 5.5. I'm allowed to say that because I myself am a 3. Anyway, Stan is stuck in San Francisco on business. Probably got a mistress. Karen is a little nervous because she's never spent the night alone in their house. He tells her to take some pills and go to bed. Yeah, she's probably just on her period, am I right? After she hangs up, she locks up the house, but soon the doorbell rings. She opens it a little, but leaves the chain on. There's a Latino man at the door, and he explains to her that his car ran out of gas, which he thinks is odd because he swore he had a full tank when he left. She tells him there's a gas station half a mile up the road. Great! But he wants to use her phone to see if the station will send someone out to him. She refuses to let him in. Reasonable. He's a stranger. She further explains that there's only one attendant who works at that station anyway, so he'd have to walk there himself. She tries to close the door on him, but he sticks his hand and face through as much as possible and tells her that his girlfriend is in the car and could she stay in the house with her? He doesn't want to leave her alone. Karen declines and manages to get the door shut and locked again. She makes sure all the other entrances to the house are locked. I really don't blame her. I would do the same thing. She tries to shake off the incident by grabbing a book and heading upstairs. Before she gets far, she hears a woman scream and then the sound of a car squealing away. She checks outside, but she can't see anything because of the fog. The coastal fog. And the low clouds. That was forecasted. Karen goes to bed, but is woken up during the night by that damn doorbell again. When she answers, there's a couple of police officers there with the man from earlier. The man, named Sanchez, starts shouting, "That's her! She's the one!" The cops ask her to verify his story, and she does. They tell her that Sanchez's girlfriend has been badly assaulted and left for dead. Karen tells them that she might have heard her scream and then a car driving away. Sanchez tries to lunge for her, but the cops hold him back as he yells that this is all her fault. She shut the door on his girlfriend and left her to die. The cops apologize to her and escort Sanchez out, leaving Karen alone again. Question, Mr. Sanchez, is there some reason that your girlfriend can't walk? He said he didn't want to leave her alone. Okay, great. So don't. lock up your car, and walk to the gas station together. I have no idea why they didn't do that in the first place. I certainly wouldn't have wanted to sit alone in a dead car in the dark by myself. I would have wrapped myself around my guy like a wet cat clings to a tree branch and forced him to take me with him. Anyway, Karen feels awful about this whole thing, and I get it, but again, I would have done the same thing. I'm not letting strangers in my house, especially if I'm alone. She's so upset that she calls Stan, waking him up in San Francisco. She wants him to come home right now, and he agrees. But the planes aren't flying due to the weather, so he'll have to drive back. Karen falls asleep on the couch, and the next morning is once again woken up by the door. This time it's her neighbor, Simon Carter, who is even older than Stan, or at least he looks it. She invites him in. Over breakfast out on her patio, she tells him about what happened the night before, and about her guilt, but he brushes it off, insisting that she did nothing wrong. And yeah, I'm with Simon on this one. He tells her the police went by his home the night before, too, to ask for an alibi. He says he was home watching an episode of television that he wrote. And then he makes a weird, flirty pass at her. It's uncomfortable, and she's clearly uncomfortable, but she chooses to ignore it. While they're talking, 3 young surfer dudes walk up to her house. Presumably they got lost on the way to the Gidget set. Simon is annoyed that she apparently invited them over. Karen shrugs and says that they would have come over anyway. They're all a bunch of freeloaders. Simon makes a quick exit, and Karen remarks that Stan hates her friends too. She listens closely as Simon's car peels off, like it maybe sounds like the car she heard last night, but to me it doesn't. The 3 guys, Rick, Ed, and Tom, now join her on the patio. They tell her they saw Sanchez and his girl the night before on the beach. They tell her that they think Sanchez is the culprit, actually. Karen just wants to drop the whole subject. The guys talk her into going surfing with them to take her mind off things. So Stan finally arrives home, just in time to see his wife out on the waves with 3 young hot men. Well, 2 young hot men and Richard Jekyll. Sorry. And Stan is most definitely not amused. The couple gets back inside to fight about it. Karen's sorry that she freaked out last night, but she's feeling much better now. Well, Stan's understandably annoyed that he drove half the night to get to her, and now she's fine. He ends up getting a call about his business deal going through, and he's gotta go back to San Francisco. And this time he figures he'll just take Karen along and save himself a lot of trouble. He said it shouldn't take long and they'll be home in time for dinner. She argues there's no point in going with him if he's not going to be gone that long. He's all, but I don't want you getting hysterical on me again and ruining my business deal. I'm a businessman, you see. She says he'll be early anyway. But will he? Or will the coastal fog and the low clouds come in and ground the planes again? She really just does not want to go with him. Stan does keep a gun in the house and quickly shows her how to use it before he leaves. They do have a tender goodbye, and it seems like they do actually love each other. To each their own. I'm not here to judge. Karen decides to go to the hospital to check on Sanchez's girlfriend. She runs into a doctor, and that would be the small part that Greg Morris plays, who just starts telling her all about this woman's condition before even asking if she knows her. Dude, that's none of her business! Was the Hippocratic Oath not a thing yet? No, I'm actually asking, was it? Karen says she'll pay for better treatment if she has to, but the doctor assures her that it's not an issue of money, they just really can't do anything more for the woman. Sanchez overhears her and starts shouting again. He says that if a dog had come scratching at her door, she would have let it in. Okay, that's totally different, my guy. Dogs don't have thumbs. Can't hold guns or knives. Then he threatens her, saying that she will pay and he will collect. Sir, I really think you deserve some of the blame here, too, for leaving the lady alone when you didn't have to. Besides, Karen was not the one who attacked your girlfriend. Maybe focus some of that anger and find out who the attacker was. Look at me, I'm defending a Karen. She goes back home more upset than ever. At the hospital, unfortunately, Sanchez's girlfriend does end up passing away. Enraged, he storms out of the hospital and straight to Karen's house. Karen's getting dinner ready, and she doesn't notice Sanchez just straight up breaking in. Dude, are you planning on killing her? Beating her up? Really? If that's the kind of a person you are, then she was right not to let you in. Surprise, surprise, the low clouds and coastal fog are back, and Stan phones to say that the planes have been grounded and he can't get home that night. Yeah, you're probably with your mistress again. She tries to call up a friend to go and stay with, but she can't get through. You should have just gone to San Francisco. Just as Sanchez is getting ready to attack her, I guess, there's a noise from the kitchen. Sanchez runs upstairs and Karen grabs the gun. But it turns out it's Simon. He says the kitchen door was unlocked, so he just let himself in and helped himself to her food. What the hell? The entitlement. She's freaked out because she's sure all the doors were locked. Stan fixes himself a drink and sits himself very close to her. I don't like it. Upstairs, Sanchez just looks for a place to lie in wait, I suppose. What is wrong with all these men? Stan starts talking philosophy with Karen, much to her annoyance. He says that he can relate to whoever killed the woman. Okay. He makes her uncomfortable enough to tell him to leave. But instead of doing that, he grabs her and tells her he's tired of her running away from him. Oh my god! She struggles and manages to escape out the front door into the waiting arms of Rick, Tom, and Ed. She's glad that they're here and she wants to go to the police. Rick tells her that they'll check the house themselves and if Simon's still there, they'll handle him. So they all go back inside while Sanchez scurries back up the stairs, and this is really becoming comical at this point. Everybody just missing Sanchez while he sneaks around. Just have some awareness of your surroundings. Or get a dog. The guys check the whole house, but Simon is gone. Sanchez isn't, though. Sanchez, would you just pick a hiding spot and stay there? Good God. There is one point where I laughed out loud. Rick opens the shower door, ready to, strike with a fire poker if someone's in there. But the thing is, it is a clear shower door. There was no reason at all to open it. You can see there's no one in there before he opens the door. It's just a hilarious little moment. Rick makes a big show of calling the police, and I'm sure you know by now where this is going, right? The guys take Karen into the living room and joke around with her for a few moments. Rick is pretty clearly the leader here, and his demeanor as he speaks turns colder and colder. Karen starts to get nervous and says the police should have been there by now. Girl, in fairness, it has been 90 seconds. She says she feels sorry for Simon and that he must be sick. That's the only explanation for why he grabbed her the way he did. Oh, Karen, honey, you do not have to feel bad for him. Tom starts going around and switching off the lamps. He also locks the front door. And Rick just casually mentions that they drained the gas from Sanchez's truck while he and his girl were on the beach. Sanchez, by the way, has relocated to the top of the stairs and is overhearing all of this. She asked why they would do that. Well, for kicks, baby. Just for kicks. They watched as the couple ran out of gas right at her house. Watched her slam the door in his face and watched him leave the girl alone. Karen says she can't believe it, and then Rick delivers the scariest line of the episode. Quote, "Well, we have lots of time tonight, Karen. Before we're through, you'll believe it." End quote. Nope. No thank you. That implies that not only are they going to assault her and probably kill her, they're going to take their time with it. They're going to torture her. They then let her know that they never actually called the cops. Yeah, we got that by now, but I guess Karen was holding out to hope. Karen tries to get away, but they easily overpower her. And I guess it's a good thing that Sanchez was armed and going to kill Karen because he now has new people to take his anger out on and makes his move. He shoots Ed and everyone else drops to the floor. He comes up on Tom and tells him to beg, which he does. Sanchez kicks him and knocks him out, but Rick runs through the sliding door over the patio wall and down the beach, where creepy old Simon Carter is still lurking around and he tackles him. Sanchez catches up and Rick tries to goad him into shooting him. Sanchez finally realizes that maybe murder isn't the best course of action here and says he'll just hand him over to the cops. But truthfully, it's clear that he only decides against killing him because Rick wanted him to kill him. Sanchez leads Rick back into the house. Simon follows and tells Karen that he only came back to apologize. Everyone goes inside except for her. She watches the sky from the patio and notes that the planes are flying again. She breaks down in tears, and that's the end of our tale. Hitch comes back for some more surfing humor, and we're out. I really enjoy this episode, although it does raise some questions, for me at least. I mean, it seems to be saying that you don't know who you can trust. Karen thought the surfers were her friends. She thought Simon was her friend. She was definitely wrong about the surfers, and she was also wrong about Simon, even if he wasn't maybe gonna kill her, but still, gross. And are we meant to believe that she could have trusted Sanchez? Because when he lost his girlfriend, his first instinct was revenge on Karen. Actually, before she even died, he was threatening her. Now, maybe cooler heads would have prevailed if he hadn't been interrupted by the real culprits, but we don't know what he would have done if he had gotten to her alone. He saved her, but was that his motive? I don't think so. He hated Karen. He was grieving his girlfriend. His motive was revenge. He only didn't kill Rick at the end because he figured Rick would suffer more in prison where he couldn't get his kicks. Sanchez is not the hero here, or the good guy, but I guess no one in the story really is. As I said earlier about Karen, I wouldn't have let Sanchez or his girlfriend inside either. Maybe that makes me a bad person. No, honestly, maybe it does. All I know is I wouldn't feel safe letting strangers into my house, and I would be most concerned with protecting myself first. Also, is there a racist element to this? Would she have trusted Sanchez if he were a white man? Because all the men she did trust were white. And all of them betrayed her. But she also already knew him. They weren't strangers to her. She'd never met Sanchez before. Am I just going around in circles at this point? Is this just a fun suspense mystery episode and nobody thought about it any deeper than that? I don't know. I wasn't in the writer's room. Anyway, this is a really good, creepy hour of television, in my opinion, and I highly recommend it. Give it a watch if you can. Hitchcock Presents is streaming on Prime, and I think on Peacock too. So, if you like his movies, maybe check out some of his show. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Bye!